What's up guys, how are you all doing? Today we're gonna do a map guide. Tundra is the map, so let's get right into it. Tundra is a small map, which has something going for every tank type. Its main routes on the edges of the map enable for heavy tank crawling, the hill and lots of routes in the middle enable mediums to give effective flanker fire. And with all its bushes and trees and hills, Tundra is also a good environment for light tanks where they can both spot active and passive. Also, tank destroyers are not left out and have lots of sniping positions to support their team. And because of the open fields and waters on Tundra, even artillery can be very effective on this map, unfortunately. When you take a closer look at the map, you'll see that the two bases are close to each other and that they are connected by a little bridge. You will see here a little village and a big hill on the right. And I'll tell you right now that the main fighting areas are in those areas. One is in the far west of the map for the heavies mainly, and one on the right for the mediums mainly. Tank destroyers also have a very nice time on this map because the bases are really big. The areas I marked on the map are safe areas where tank destroyers can stay. Some tank destroyers like to hide around here and here, but I won't really recommend that in the beginning of the game because you will have very little shots. But about that I'll go in a little bit more detail later on in the video. If you are heavy on a green spawn, you will find yourself most of the time going either to the heavy main road or to this area. You can also of course give support to the hill if there's not too much artillery and if you feel comfortable to do so. If you spawn on the red spawn, you will find yourself most of the time going to the heavy lane or to this corner, but some of the time you can, if you feel safe, also go to here. When you spawn at green with a medium, there are not so much options. You either go to here, but that's pretty dangerous, or you go to here on top of the hill or fight from the bottom of the hill. When you are a medium on the red spawn, you can either go to here, which is again pretty dangerous, or to the hill and then on top of the hill, or you can stay on the bottom and fight from there. When you are a light tank on a green spawn, there are a lot of options. You can decide to go to the hill, you can decide to go here, or you can decide to go here and spot enemies in their base. You can also hang around under the bridge, but I won't really recommend that in the beginning of the game because you won't have any support. When you are a light tank from the red spawn, you can either go to this area again, you can go to these bushes up here or here, or you can go to the hill and help with your mediums. With tank destroyers there are a lot of options on this map. When you spawn at the green spawn, you can either stay in the base behind these rocks, or you can go to the bridge to give support fire from there, or you can go to this side or this side. But I won't really recommend the first one of those two in J1 area, because you won't really give any effective fire until later in the game. When you are at the red spawn with a tank destroyer, you have way more options. You can sit around here or here. You can also decide to go on this hill or this hill. You can either go here to give support to your mediums, and you have also lots of options to camp behind here, here, and behind here, which I won't really recommend because you won't have any effective fire in the beginning of the game. If you spawn in an artillery on this map, you either have three options for both sides. On the green side, that is this area, to give support fire to the middle area of the map. You can go to here to give flanking fire on the hill and support your heavies. Or you can go here and give effective support on the hill. When you are artillery on the red spawn, you can either go here to give support fire to everywhere, here to give flanking fire on the hill and support fire on the heavies, or here where you can support the hill very effectively. All the areas I just marked on the map also go for bottom tier tanks, but you will have to be very careful and play to the strengths of your vehicle. If you have a heavy but you have a really strong turret, you might be better off at the hill than on the heavy side. If you have really strong hull armor and gun, you might still want to consider going to here behind your main forces. When you are a light, you just want to go to the light positions, but be a little bit more careful than normal. When you're a medium bottom tier, I would recommend you to go to the hill and go on top of there, along with some high tier tanks from your team, because on your own you won't be able to hold it. When you're a bottom tier with the tank destroyer, you can just do the same thing as always, but make sure you don't lose too much HP. And with artillery, you know what to do. If you are a heavy on Tundra and you don't want to go to the heavy side because there are too much enemies going there and not enough teammates, or the other way around, and if you think you are more useful on the hill, then go there. There's lots of hill down positions on this hill and behind that rock. Also, these rocks are very good heavy tank positions. If you take those front positions, you will have to watch out for RT, which can hit you from this side. And if the enemy controls the hill, you will also have to watch out because they can give flanking fire from here and also from this side. If you are this back heavy and the enemy controls the hill, you don't have to fall back necessarily, but you will have to angle your armor against these guys and hope your teammates will give fire on these guys so you won't get shot in the back. Also, you have to watch out for tank destroyers which like to camp in the back and shoot through the gap here or around the corner here. If you spawn on the red side and you consider going to the hill with your heavy, there are a couple of positions. You can either go to here, up the slope, or on these rocks. You will have to watch out in this back position for RT if they are located around here, and if you are in this position you will have to watch out for this. This also goes for this position, which also can be RT'd, and is also in a very open place for tank destroyers which like to camp around here, and for mediums of the enemies who like to stand here. If your team controls the hill, by all means stand against the rock because it's a very powerful position. But if the enemy does control the hill, be aware that you will be flanked and you need to fall back to more back positions like these, and that you rely on this guy to pump fire into here. If you are in this back position here, you don't have to fall back necessarily, but you will need to angle your armor against these guys and not against these guys, and you have to rely on your team to support you there. If you are a medium and you want to go to the hill, then you are best off on top of the hill in these windows around this corner to give flanking fire on the enemy, or you can hill down here or stand behind here. This last position here is only useful if the enemy controls the hill, because you will be able to give flanking fire here and you will be able to shoot people on those corners, but that only goes for if the enemy controls the hill. This position is very good but very vulnerable to RT, so watch out for that. This position here is probably the most safe position on the hill, but you won't get much shots and you will be able to get shot from here, so watch out if you are spotted. This position here, where you can give flanking fire here, is very good, but you need to watch out for RT, which also goes for this position, and people like here can shoot you easily, so watch out for that. If you decide to poke here, be very careful because RT can hit you from here, and also tank destroyers can shoot you like this if you poke too far. If your team controls the hill and you're in this position, you can spot the whole of the enemy base, but this also goes the other way around, so be careful for RT. If you are a medium on the red spawn and you decide to go to the hill, you can either hill down here or go on top of the hill here and here, or you can go here and give flanking fire. If your team has control of the hill and you want to push on, if you're gonna stand here and here, you can be very powerful, but the enemies here will be hill down, so you will have to watch out. As a medium here, you are vulnerable to artillery, same for this position. This position is even more vulnerable because apart from RT, also tank destroyers which like to camp in the back in the base can hit you. If you are a light tank on the green spawn and you decide to go to the hill, there are three things you can do. You can either go here, or you can wait here and wait for enemy lights to cross here and give a shot and then drive up. If you do that, make sure there are not too many fast mediums on the enemy team, which will be able to punish you when you drive up yourself because you waited a little bit. So be careful with this tactic and look at the matchmaking before you decide to do this. When you are on top of the hill, on this position, and you won the hill, you can spot the whole enemy base here, and if you stand in this bush right here, you can also spot these guys. Be aware that some of these positions don't have very many bushes like this, so you have to watch out for enemy tank destroyers which like to camp in the base, and also watch out for artillery. If you are alighting from the red spawn and you decide to go to the hill, then there are the same 3 things you can do. You can go here, or you can do the same tactic from here, but again, make sure that there aren't too many fast mediums on the enemy team, because otherwise you will be out of luck. When you are on top of the hill, you can spot the whole enemy base, but on this position there's no bushes at all, so you will have to watch out for tank destroyers which like to camp here, or maybe behind here. You are very vulnerable to artillery in this position, so make sure you know what you're doing. If you are a tank destroyer on the green spawn and you want to support your team on the hill, then you can go here, or on this position here, which is a little bit safer because there's a bush there. You can give effective flanking fire between this rock and on this corner. You will have to watch out because enemy artillery will be aiming for you, and also the enemy heavy tanks, which are on the hill. If your team is winning the hill, you have to go to a different position because you won't get any shots, because the enemies will be too far back here for you to shoot. When you are an experienced player and you can handle it, you can also go close range with tank destroyers, but you will have to be very careful because most tank destroyers don't have any armor. If you're gonna talk about tank destroyers which have armor, like the Jagdpanzer E100 or something, then by all means go stand in this position. You have to make use of your armor. If you are a tank destroyer and you spawn on the red spawn and you want to support your team on the hill, you can go to this position. There is a bush there and you can give effective fire between the rocks here, on this corner here, on this corner here, and on this corner here. These last two only apply if the enemy team on the hill. If this is the case and you don't have any more allies here, make sure you fall back in time. There is a faster way to win the hill, and that is by flanking. If you're on the green spawn or the red spawn, that doesn't matter, you can flank through the water. For the green spawn, this is a little bit harder because when they flank around here, they need to push much further and are vulnerable to this position and also by artillery. The red spawn has it a little bit easier because they can drive here and be in RT cover and fight against those tanks without being exposed to the campers here. The only disadvantage they have is that people who are here are hull down for these people. If they decide to go to a little bit of a stronger position where those people are less hull down, they have to drive up to this rock, but then they will be vulnerable to artillery. When you are fighting on the hill, either on the red spawn or the green spawn, and you are getting flanked, there are 2 things you can do. You can either push out one of the 2 flanks, depending on the situation. Always push out the weakest flank, that's easier. Or you can drive back to a position where both of the enemy groups are on one side of your tank. In a north spawn that means you will have to go like this, and then all the way around, and then you have the flankers in front of you just as the people from the hill. On the south spawn this is a little easier because you can just fall back here and go to here, up here. Here you can fight the flankers and you can also fight people from the hill. Well, what do you have to do when your team loses the hill on the green spawn? If you are here and you manage to get back to here and fall back even more and not die, then you are able to go to the base and take defensive positions like these, or even back here near the RTs. Don't go stand in these positions because you will be separated from your team and the enemy can easily rush you and kill you. If you stand in positions like this and this, then you can give effective fire in the people who drive up here or up here. If you are on the red spawn and your team loses the hill and you are able to fall back, or you were already on the other side, then you have to take defensive positions like this, from which you can shoot this and this. You can also stand behind this little hill and this little hill, and even this little hill if you think you can manage to defend the base easily. You will be able to give fire all along this area, which is very important to secure the base. For both teams, if you lose the hill, this flank also comes into play. If this flank is also lost, you will be shot from multiple angles and you will lose. So make sure that your team is still fighting here or already has won this flank. If your team loses the hill and you are coming back from this flank, make sure you do it all the way around, because otherwise if you drive like here you will be able to get shot from the hill and that's not very nice. What do you need to do if your team wins the hill? If your team won the hill from the green spawn, you can either stay on the hill and give fire to these positions and these positions, or you can sneak around here and try to fight from here. This is a little bit more dangerous because this is a pretty open area, but most of the enemies won't react quickly enough because there are a lot of bushes here. You can also drive off the hill and go into these positions and these positions, but this is only for armored tanks and not for light tanks. Of course, if your team won, you can also fall back and help the other flank. If you're on the red spawn and your team on the hill, you can either choose to stay on the hill and snipe, or you can go down to here and kill lonely tank destroyers and artillery, or you can go up here with a strong tank like a heavy and just brawl with the people which are here and here. Of course, you can also choose to just fall back and help the other flank. When you take a closer look at the left side of the map, the western side, also known as the heavy side, you can see that there is a main road here and a little village on the other side, along with a road through the water. They are splitted by a hill in the middle, and behind everything there are camping places on both sides. When you are a heavy on the green spawn and you are going to the western side, there are two things you can do. You can either go to this position here and stand on the corner fighting versus the people who are here, or you can go sit behind this rock or behind this little hill. The position behind the rock is very dangerous because every time you poke you can get shot by RT or by the people who are here, so you can only really poke when your enemies are on reload. The position here is safer to that because you can decide for yourself when the enemies are gonna shoot you and you are hull down as well. You will need to watch out though because you are very close range and enemies can easily hit your weak spots. Also, you are vulnerable to RT, which is located around here. If you decide to go to the right side of the western flank, to this position, you'll probably fight against the enemies over here. You should only take this position when your heavy tank has an accurate gun, because otherwise you won't be able to hit the weak spots of the people who are hull down over here. You can also decide to push on here on this corner, but this will make you very vulnerable to flanking maneuvers from this side or from on top of here. If you are a heavy tank on the red side, there are the same two things you can do. You can sit behind here, or behind here, or you can go to the right side and stand behind here. If you take this position, be aware that you can be RT'd from here, but you are very good hull down against enemies who are here. This position is only usable with a heavy tank with good accuracy, because if you are going to shoot a distance of this far, you won't be able to hit the enemy tank's weak spots with an inaccurate gun. If you are deciding to stand behind this rock, this is a perfect place to side scrape here against the people who are here, but again, this little distance doesn't seem like a lot, but because the people here are hull down, it's very hard to pen them. If you decide to poke to this side, this is very dangerous because you will expose your side armor. Also, it is possible that RT locates around here and can hit you when you poke out one of these sides. If you decide to take this position, you are very close range against the enemies who are here and you can hull down against them, but be aware that your weak spots will be exposed. You can also be hit by RT, which is located around here. If you spawn with a medium on the green side and you don't want to go to the hill because there are too much enemies going there or there are too much teammates going there, and you decide to go to the western flank, your only position is between these houses. There is also another position which you can use, and that is hull down over here or peek behind here, but I won't really recommend that unless it's a medium tank with a very powerful gun or very good armor. If you are gonna play a medium on this position between the houses, you have to be aware that if you are spotted that you can be sniped from the hill, so make sure your team has the hill or be very careful. And if you want to poke out here to shoot these guys, be aware that tank destroyers from back here can hit you easily, as well as RT. If you are a medium tank on the red spawn and you decide to go to the western flank for whatever reason, you can use the same positions as I mentioned on the green spawn. On the red side, that means you're going to use this rock or this position, which is very dangerous and only should be used by very well armored mediums, or you can go sit between the houses over here. Be aware that from this side as well you are exposed to the hill, so make sure you hide behind the houses properly. When you do that, you have to watch out that RT from here can hit you easily. Whenever you decide to poke out of these houses to hit the enemies here, you will have to watch out for tank destroyers which like to camp in the back. When you are a light tank on the green spawn and you want to go to the western side, even though the hill is a way better position, but you still want to go to the western side, between the houses is really your only option. If you're gonna do that, be aware of the same things as I said about the medium in that position. If you are standing in this position and the enemy has this position and you are proxy spotting each other, make sure that your team has won the hill so they can give crossfire. If you think you can handle the situation, you can fight these people. Make sure that you're in an open place like this so your team can support you from the hill. If this is not the case and the enemy team controls the hill, you should probably get out of there. Your main purpose as a light tank on this position is scouting out tank destroyers which are back here, and you can wait for your opportunity and rush in like this and flank these guys, or immediately like this. Be careful for camping tank destroyers though. When you are a light tank on the red spawn and you, for whatever reason, don't go to the hill, this position is your only option. Just like the other side, the same rules apply. You can wait for your chance to go around for these enemies or for these enemies. But make sure, whenever you do that tank destroyers in the back are focusing on something else or are dead already. If you are a tank destroyer and you decide to help your team in the western side, you have two options. You either stand behind here or behind here with your heavies, but make sure you don't take too much hits then, or you can stand behind here. But if you take this position, be aware that you won't be able to support your team unless your enemy decides to come closer and your heavies have fallen back to this position. If this happens, you have very effective crossfire, but if this isn't the case, you are probably better off somewhere else. If you decide to take this position, you are hull down against these guys, and you can shoot when they are reloading. However, this position is very open and it doesn't matter where RT is, they will always be able to hit you. If you decide to take this position, you can fight against these guys, but this only works in an armored tank destroyer which can take a beating. To sum up, you're probably better off on the other side unless your team falls back enough to this position, because you can support them from either here or here. If you are a tank destroyer from the red spawn, you have a little bit more options. You can stand behind here or behind here, and you can even stand behind here, but this only works when the enemy team is pushing like this. If you're gonna stand around here, the same rules apply. This only works if the enemy team is pushing on. You can also give fire to the enemies which are here, but most of the enemies stay back here, so you won't have effective fire from this position. The best place for tank destroyers on this flank is from this position, where they can snipe all the way to here, and all the way to the heavy side if the enemy is pushing on a little bit. You can also decide to fight close range around here, but again, just like the other position, you have to have armor. Just like on the hill, on the western side you can get flanked as well. When there is a fight over here and here, mediums and lights can use this area to prepare for a flanking maneuver to either this side or around here. Whenever this happens, you are exposed to the tank destroyers which are in the back, so be aware of that. If your team has won this position but lost this position, you can either on this side go to this position where you can give effective flanking fire into these guys, or from the other side you can go all the way around like here and then give flanking fire. For both sides you can also take the closer routes, but be aware that tank destroyers in positions like these and these have easy flanking shots into you. If your team has won this side and not this side, you can easily flank around here or around here, but be aware that tank destroyers in the back can hit you. If this is the case, you probably should push on like this, take them out first and then go back. This also applies for the other side. If you lost the western side from the green spawn and the enemies push around here, you can either defend from positions like this, and this, or you can defend from the hill if your team controls it. If this isn't the case, you might want to consider standing as far away from the hill as possible to avoid being flanked. You can also decide to go back and help win the hill to make your defense easier. If you are on the red side and your team has lost this side and the enemies are pushing around here, this is a very powerful position because it can put shots all the way down here, and all the way down here, and even all the way down here. The problem with this position is that it is on the hill, so this only works if your team has control of it. You can also defend from back positions like these, and these. You can't stand in positions like these because your team can't support you there and the enemy team will kill you easily. You can also stand around here to give support fire to this position. When you are on the green spawn and your team is winning the hill, there are a couple of things you can do. You can push to the railroad here, you can push to this position here, or you can push all the way around here. If you are going to this position, then you need to take care of the artillery and the tank destroyers who like to camp around here. If you want to go to this position right here, then you have to be very careful when crossing because people from the hill can snipe you, if the enemy controls the hill of course. When you are going to this position, you first have to take care of tank destroyers who like to guard the bridge. If you are in this position, you can stop the enemy team from coming up these roads, and if you are in this position, you can stop the enemy from passing here. If you are in this position, you are very nicely held down against people which are here, because in this position there aren't any bushes and you can spot them easily. If you are on the red spawn and your team on the hill and you're pushing along this side, you have it a little bit easier because crossing here and here won't expose you to the people from the hill. You are only exposed to people from the hill if you are around this position, so make sure that doesn't happen. If you are pushing this side, make sure you check this position as well because RT likes to hide there. If you are crossing here, you push through the open for people which like to stand here and here, so be aware of that. If you manage to defeat the enemy base, strong positions to take are around here, where you can fight people from the hill, here, where you can fight people who try to drive up here, or behind here, or maybe a little bit more aggressive here, from where you can hold down fight people who are here. Also you can give crossfire to people who drive up here. So now we've talked about the hill and the west side. Between those, there's a big area in the middle. The middle area exists of 3 places: the red base, the green base, and the little water. The 2 bases are connected by a road over the water and a road through here through the water. Also, there are lots of camping positions behind the bases, for example here, and also around here. If you are in a heavy tank and you want to go to the middle, you don't. You simply go to the west or to the hill. The reason for that is that the middle area is only meant for flanking and for playing passively, and in a heavy you shouldn't do that. If you are in a medium and you're on the green spawn and you want to go to the middle and you can't go to the hill, then you go to the west. If you can't go to the west, then you go to the hill and you don't stay in the middle. However, when you go to places like the hill or the west and you see your team is losing, you can always fall back later in the game and go to the middle to use the water in the middle to flank enemies, but I will come back to that later. This also goes for the red spawn. If you're in a light tank and you're on the green spawn and you want to go to the middle, you don't have too much options. If you don't want to go to the hill or to the west, you can only sit here or on this ridge line here, and you can only spot people who drive around here. If you are in a light tank on a red spawn, you have a little bit more options. You can chill here, there's a bush there and you can spot everyone who's driving across here, or you can sit on this little plateau right here. If you are in this position, you can shoot the people in the enemy base, or shoot people who are here and are in the open around here. When you are a tank destroyer and you are on the green spawn, you have a couple of options. You can stay here, here or here, but this is very passive play, so you will have to wait for the enemy to break one of your 2 flanks. You can also sit on this plateau here, from which you can shoot the enemy base, or on this ridge line, but most of the time if you're a tank destroyer and you plan to stay in the base, you're gonna stay around here. From this position you can guard the bridge, and if the enemy controls the hill you can shoot the people who poke here, and if your west falls you can shoot people who are here, or when this place falls you can drive a little bit more this way and then you can shoot them easily in the side. Also, you are very good held down there. If you are a tank destroyer on the red spawn, you have a couple of options. You can play passively here or behind these rocks, or you can guard the bridge or stand on this ridgeline or this plateau. If you're gonna play the passive position here, you have to wait for the enemies till they drive up this road because you can shoot them easily from there, or you can shoot people on the hill if the enemy team controls it. Also, you can shoot people who decide to drive up here. If you take this position, you can shoot people up here, but mainly you will have to wait for enemies to drive in your base. If you take the position on the ridgeline here, you can only shoot the enemy base, so I don't really recommend it. If you're gonna stand on this island, you can shoot people who are in their base, and you can shoot people between the houses here and in the open here. The last position here is guarding the bridge. If the enemy team wins this flank, you can easily shoot them when they cross, and you're also a good hill down here. Also, if you drive a little bit this way, you can shoot people on the hill and you can give crossfire on people who drive here. But this only applies when the enemy team has won the hill. The reason you don't go to the middle in your heavies or mediums is because it's very passive. Or very dangerous. If you go in this area, you don't have support from any players from your team and you're easily flanked from here, here and even from the roads down here. So you can be surprised very easily. On the other hand, if you are a light tank and you are in the middle and spotting the enemy base, you can easily get out as well. The main purpose of the middle area is to connect the left and the right side. When you see the enemy is pushing on this flank, you can come either from this direction or from the middle. You can jump with your mediums, lights or other fast tanks, jump in the middle and flank enemies. This also goes from the other side of course. Be aware that you can be shot from the hill though, so again it's very dangerous. If you see the enemy is flanking your team around here, you can also jump into their backs. So the middle is a very dangerous and surprising area for lots of enemies. So I only recommend going into the middle area if you are experienced or very fast. If it's very late game and you're one of the only survivors, the middle area is a great place. You can stand here, spot enemies driving all the way across here and here, or you can stand here spotting people who cross here and here. Of course, on which side you're gonna poke depends of the last spotted positions of the enemy team and where you think they will come up. You can only do this really when you have a lot of HP, because you can get surprised as well. So make sure you only stay in the middle when you have lots of armor / HP. If you are low HP and it's very late game, one of the places you can hide is around here, because there are bushes here and you can spot anyone driving up here. Also from time to time you can sit in this bush here and then spot people driving. This way you won't be surprised too much, and with your low HP you still can carry the game in the end. If it's late game, make sure you don't drive through the open fields, because it's very possible that the enemy is on the hill and will outspot you. Now let's talk a little bit about the bases. When you are capping either of the two bases, it doesn't matter, there's a rock there where you can hide behind. Go stand on the side from which you expect the least enemies. Of course, if there are multiple enemies and you know one is on this side and one is on this side, you can't stay in the cap. And the reason for that is that the map is very small and people will always be able to reset you eventually. So the cap is more of a place to lure enemies, or when you are 1v1 in the end or there's only one enemy left, because you can circle around the rock and he won't be able to kill you. When you are defending the cap, it's a little different story. The enemies will be capping on the side of the rock where the enemy team can support them. If this is the hillside, they will be capping on this side of the rock, and if it's the heavy side, they will be capping on the other side of the rock. Make sure you always come up on the side where they are standing, because otherwise you will be proxy spotted and the enemy team can support people in the cap easily. If you are 1 versus 1 and you are proxy spotted by the enemy in the cap, they will just circle around the rock and cap you. If the enemy is on this side of the rock and the enemy team controls the hill, then you might want to consider driving up one of these roads, because you can shoot them instantly when they drive up. If they are on the other side of the rock, one of the places you can attack from is like this, or around like this on the other side, or you can drive up here. But this is very dangerous, because if the enemy controls this area, you might receive some shots. So guys, I'm gonna wrap up the video here. There's probably a lot of things I missed and didn't talk about, but in conclusion we can say that the west side is mainly focused on heavy tanks and slow tank destroyers, and the hill side is mainly focused on medium tanks. Tank destroyers like to hang around in base or support either of the two flanks, and light tanks can really go wherever they want and use the many options on this map to flank enemies. I feel like this map is mainly focused on heavy tanks, it's lots of close range fighting, and the middle area is mainly focused on strong close range medium tanks or very fast strong light tanks which have a powerful gun. Artillery will never be your main worry on this map, but camping tank destroyers will stop the push sometimes. And finally, I want to add a disclaimer to this video. All the tactics explained in this video are based on common situations, but however the enemy team plays, you should always react accordingly, depending on the situation. So to end this video, I'm gonna give my own opinion on this map by making my own ultimate random battle setup for this map. As you can see on this map for both spawns I've made my ultimate setup, and because it's random battle I have 4 heavy tanks, 4 mediums, 3 light tanks, 3 tank destroyers and 1 artillery. Both heavy lanes have 2 heavy tanks and are supported by an artillery and a tank destroyer. To the right of that I have a light, a medium and heavy and a TD guard this part of the map, and then I have a light tank spotting the middle and keeping an eye out on the enemy base, and then I have the main forces on the hill with a tank destroyer behind them. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think of this concept. I've never done anything like this before. I've only kept it at World of Tanks replay commentaries before. I went all out on this video with hours upon hours of work, and it was really worth it I think myself, but let me know in the comments anyway. Oh, and by the way, I want to congratulate Jingles on hitting 500,000 subscribers and hosting this contest. This was truly my inspiration to make this video and go all out. It was probably about 60 hours of work. So yeah guys, I think that's everything I have to say for today, and yeah, see ya!